the cities of Israel till the Son of Man be come. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they've called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more then called them of his household? Fear not them, therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, or hid that shall not be known. What I tell you in the darkness, that speak ye in the light, and what ye hear in the ear, that preach ye upon the housetops. And fear not them which can kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both body and soul in hell. It's very sobering, but you need to understand, if you're a friend of the world, you're an enemy of God. If you have all those in the world who speak highly of you and adore you and praise your name, what does that say for who you're serving? They'll say you're a negative preacher. Jesus was a negative preacher. He came to do the will of the Father. He did not wrong man by showing him his sin, did he? He made that honest man love him. But at the same time, he made the dishonest man hate him. He started out with great crowds, but at his cross there was 4, and one of them was his mother. What happened? The friend seeker can't love Christ and be accepted in this world. He was really what the world was looking for. He would have solved all the problems that they'd ever had. But they'd rather run him off from their house before they would repent and obey his commands than to welcome him into their heart and do what was commanded. And because every time they saw him, he was a demonstration of him speaking against their evil. Finally, but inevitably, he became their enemy. The Apostle Paul, in writing to the church at Galatia, asked the same question. Have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth? You see, the friend seeker can't love Christ and be accepted in this world. And when we find out that we are children of God, and then we try to be a friend of the world, what does that tell us about what we are expecting from Christ? Can you straddle the fence? Can you be a friend of the world and a friend with Christ? Can you be kind and sweet and then wonder why at his death he was a leader of 4? One would think he could have beat that. Why was his little group so small? And it seemed like that the rest of the world had everybody. In the annals of history, we find out that Noah was one of 8 out of 3 billion. I guess he was in a cult, don't you think? David fought Goliath, and when he looked around him, he was all alone. There wasn't anybody there to back him up. When Paul stood before Nero, he told Timothy, "No man stood with me, only the Lord." They were all legalistic. They were not members of the Lord's army, whoever was cowardly in defending the truth. And yet every time they defended the truth, they found out instead of somebody loving them for the word that was taught, they added a new enemy. If they weren't members of the Lord's army, they would have been members of the army of this world. Then they would have been loved and adored and financially successful and able to do what they wanted. They did not swear allegiance to Christ thinking they were going to go a masquerade ball. And sometimes people who are members of the church try to act like they're one thing, but then part of another. At a masquerade ball, you wear and are what you are not. And people can't really tell who you are because you're covered up with facial paint and with clothing that you don't usually wear. And so they might mistake you for a different person than what you really intend to be. But allegiance to Christ does not enter you into a masquerade ball. When Jesus and Paul preached, the church did not go home with food poisoning. They went to heaven. So sweet and smooth, they think their older brother had been a friend hunter. In Romans 16 and 18, they that serve such serve not our Lord Jesus, but their own bellies. And with good words and fair speeches, they deceive the hearts of the simple. These devil-called preachers and untaught church members have become an easy prey for the devil and his sources. Look at how sweet and how lovable and how apologizing they have made the church of Christ when they enter a battle. They're not like old Joshua. As for me and my house, I'm going to serve the Lord. No, they cry, for me and my house, I'm going to run cowardly, and nobody going to know that the Lord's around me. Or, like in Numbers 33 and 52 through 56, they didn't try to destroy the devil and his crowd so that sin would not be pricks in their eyes and thorns in their flesh and would later get to come back and destroy them. Satan has something waiting on us, and we don't expect it to be that way. The wisdom of the carefully chosen, worded preacher was just so sly and so smooth, and when he plied his craft, scheming with Satan to keep your light under your blanket, or to keep your faith in Jesus Christ a secret, or to have you drink your liquor or smoke your marijuana or deal privately with somebody else's daughter or somebody else's husband, nobody ever saw that you were different. The large assemblies and the 15-minute sermonettes sound real good, but did it prepare you for an eternity that God had provided or that Satan heralded it? Who and for what reason did Jesus come to this world? He didn't come to be popular. He didn't come to be accepted. He cried, I came to do thy will, O God. We have to decide who's on the Lord's side. We have to determine whether or not we're a masquerade, a hypocrite, a friend of the sinner, or a friend of the saint. We have to stand up and be counted when the gospel is shunned, We have to shun the presence of evil. We have to stay away from the wicked and their attempts to cause us to be like them. We have to speak where the Bible speaks and be silent where it's silent. We have to be a different kind of people because we're in a different army. We have a different Lord and a different master. And he reasons pretty poignantly, if they treated me this way, and you know the way they've treated me, you know the way they've beaten me, you know the way that they put me on with the cat of nine tails, you know the way that they hung me on that tree, you know what they've done to me. Do you expect them to do you any differently? Well, now the only reason they're going to do you differently than they did the Lord is that when it comes time to stand up for the truth and to do what God commands you to do, you act differently than the Lord. Old Pilate was having Jesus in his presence, and he said, "Art thou king of the Jews?" Jesus could have turned and smiled and winked his eye and said, "Not me, babe. I'm king of nobody." Standing in front of the Roman procurator, which by him confessing that he was the king of the kingdom that was coming, Jesus was telling him his life was in his hands. Jesus had to make a momentary decision, or was it momentary? Or was it a decision that he'd made before the world was? Did he get up that morning saying, "I love him not. I'm going to stand for him. I'm going to stand for him not. I'm going to the office party. Do I take his liquor? Do I take his sin? Do I act as though I'm not different? Do I make myself uncomfortable because people know what I'm supposed to be, and where do I stand today? Or do I bow my head in shame because I'm bearing a burden that's too hard for me to bear? One of the saddest complexities of the world in which we live today is that people think the burden of salvation is too difficult to bear. They think the cost of being a child of God is more than they intend to pay. So they want to live in both worlds. But let me remind you of this preacher of love, and this preacher of peace, and this preacher of joy. And let me tell you what he said to do with things and situations like this. He said, "Ye have heard that it hath been said of them at old times, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh upon a woman to lust after her in his heart committeth adultery with her in his heart also." So our slick-tongued, sweet preachers with peace and joy, wanting to make sure that they get a raise the next time the elders come together, have not taught this as a truth. They've taught us that we can be girl watchers. If thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out. Cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not thy whole body should be cast in hell. If I'm in a situation where I've been asked to take a drink of liquor, which is illicit to a child of God, which is against the teachings of Christ, and I go ahead and say, nobody will see it, nobody will know, what do? Jesus said, throw it away. If thy right hand offend thee, cut it off, and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not thy whole body should be cast into hell. Many times we have found ourselves in a position that it would be easier for us to compromise It would be easier to go to the ministerial associations. It would be easier to let on like that you don't have to obey Jesus Christ and that you don't have to continue to hear the harangue of the burden that some of the preachers of the Church of Christ think they have to bear. We can go to men like C.S. Lewis who don't believe anything, or we can go to the men like Paul the Apostle. I stood in God and before God in all good conscience until that day. Yeah, I thought I was doing all right. Man, look at me. I had my position in the Sanhedrin. I had a wife that was in the joy of my life. I had everything that a man would have to bear. To enjoy in life, and no pain to bear. But then I met Jesus on the Damascus Road. And when I met him on the Damascus Road, no, he didn't save me there. But he challenged me to carry his gospel to all the world. And I could have either entered his army, or I could have thrown it in the dirt and declared that I was going to go my way. I believe that Paul was the rich young ruler that one time had made that mistake. And he stood before Jesus Christ and he said, yeah, I've kept all these commandments from my youth up. And Jesus said to him, well, go and sell what thou hast and give to the poor, and you'll have treasures in heaven. And this young man, Saul, bowed his head and went away sorrowfully. He often wondered what played in his mind. On the road to Damascus, going into Damascus, and his friends, his fellowship, I can just imagine that outside the city of Damascus, there might have been banners hung. Saul of Tarsus has come to destroy Jesus Christ. And when he walked into town, they were leading him because he was blind. No, he didn't get to go to that big Jewish feast and festival they'd planned for a conquering hero. In fact, he didn't know where he was. He didn't know if they were coming to kill him the next minute. But he sure didn't think that he was at the house of a stepbrother of Jesus Christ. Had he known that, maybe his fear would have been worse. Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? He wasn't given the answer. He had to wait 3 days and 3 nights before Ananias came to him and said, Saul, the Lord, even Jesus, hath appeared unto thee in the way, that thou shalt hear his voice and see that just one, and hear the words of his mouth. And now why tarriest thou? Arise and be baptized, and wash away thy sins, calling on the name of the Lord. When Paul was reiterating this to the king, he said, I was not disobedient to that heavenly vision. And the first thing he began to do was change the way that he considered life was worthwhile. And he sought Christ and his love at a cost that man would have never been able to pay without faith in God. So as you're looking for friends, who are your friends? These are the people that you have association with that don't believe in the gospel of Christ any more than other people? Are these people that are a part of churches that are interested in friendship and camaraderie that has nothing to do with the teachings of Christ? Are these people that you can drink your liquor with, or run with your women or men, or allow your children not to be taught the gospel of Christ, or never ever hear you mention God unless it's in a curse name, a word or name? We've got to make up our minds. If you love the Lord and you keep his commandments, you've got to stand as these kids quoted tonight, stand. And then he says it again. And having done all, stand. That's our situation. That's where we are. And if the world doesn't like what we say, it's not our fault. Oh, we'll bear the blunt. And we'll sometimes feel sorry for ourselves. And we'll act as though that God just doesn't love us enough because he doesn't give us an easy way to go. But when we approach the portals of glory, wonder who will have won the race. If you're here and need to respond to the invitation, will you come?